back on Morning Line. Thanks for joining us. Representative Ray Clemmons is on with us this morning, along with Beth Joslin Roth, and she is with the Safe Tennessee Project, talking about the issue of guns in Tennessee and what should or shouldn't be done. An emotional issue, one that a lot of people have strong feelings about, certainly streaming on Facebook. A lot of people pointing out as they're watching this show, look, you know, there are far stricter gun control laws in cities like Chicago, and Illinois, I've heard, has it. And how's that working out for them in Chicago? Is it really making a difference in your opinion? Their take is that, no, Chicago's a killing field. So does it really work there?
Well, I'm glad that you brought that up, because the state of Illinois actually has a much lower rate of gun death than the state of Tennessee. And according to the most recent FBI uniform crime reporting data that came out this week, Memphis, Tennessee has the 5th highest rate of homicide in the country, and Chicago has the 12th.
So you think it's made a difference, there's stricter policies there?
I do.
Because Chicago, I mean, you see in the news, and of late not as much, but boy, it was bad.
Well, it was bad, but the difference is they acknowledged that they had a problem, and they passed laws at the state level to make it harder for people who shouldn't have guns to get their hands on guns. And then at the city level and at the state level, they invested in programs, evidence-based programs, violence interruption programs that have made a difference. So you have to really take a comprehensive approach when you're talking about reducing gun violence. You definitely need to have stronger gun laws, and we can look and see that states that have stronger gun laws have lower rates of gun death than states that have looser gun laws. But it's not just those laws, it's actually investing in programs that work, investing in community groups that are working in those communities that are disproportionately impacted by gun violence, that are working to interrupt those cycles of violence. It's got to be a comprehensive effort, but I do appreciate the reference to Chicago, because we get that all the time.
Yeah, a lot of them on here.
And the numbers just are not there. I mean, there are more raw numbers because Chicago is a much bigger city, but when you look at the actual rate of homicide, according to the FBI data, Memphis has a much higher rate of homicides than the city of Chicago.
John Ray, some people on here, by the way, are saying you guys are anti-gun. Are you anti-gun?
Absolutely not. Absolutely not.
He's a gun owner.
And we've started, I'm a gun owner, and I started out talking about, you know, we all have a duty to uphold the Second Amendment, and we respect the Second Amendment just like the entire Constitution and the Bill of Rights. That's not what this is about. We're talking about reducing the likelihood of someone committing acts of violence with firearms. And I want to touch on and follow up a point that Beth made is, you know, as a state legislator, my job is to get creative, find ways to address these issues. We're not up here talking about going and taking people's firearms. We're not talking about limiting the law-abiding citizens' ability to own or buy firearms. That's not what we're talking about. So, and I can't even have that conversation with most of my colleagues, as you know. So it's my job to find ways to really look at this issue in a comprehensive manner, get creative, and in doing so, I think we have to look at these root causes. When you talk about gun violence, and you want to talk about youth gun violence specifically, you know, youth gun violence is an end result of other things. It's we have to go back and look at educational opportunities, extreme poverty, exposure to serious trauma or adverse childhood, experiences in the home or in the community. Those things lead to gun violence, specifically youth gun violence. And so when we're talking about, you know, passing common sense laws or addressing gun violence, we need to also be talking about those issues, reducing adverse childhood experiences, improving educational opportunities for all of our youth across the entire city and state of Tennessee, reducing traumatic events in the home, domestic violence. Those types of things will have a serious impact on gun violence, and will ultimately reduce gun violence if we do that. And as a state legislator, those are the conversations I try to have with my colleagues, because, you know, it's not just about background checks and these types of things, which I think are important. It's also about these root causes of gun violence. Let's
take another call or two from Ken. Ken, good morning. Hi, Ken.
Hello.
Hello,
Thank
sir.
you, Nick, for taking my phone call this morning.
Sure.
Everything that's been said on here, I think, is very responsible, what people are saying. And on the issue, as an amendment and our right for carrying a firearm, people have to be more responsible and respectful of our rights, or we lose our rights. And I think this is a bipartisan issue where we have finally found common ground that assault rifles. I'm a veteran, and I believe in my right to carry a firearm, but I just don't feel that assault rifles should ever be in a civilian hand, nor should it be allowed to be stolen out of somebody's car. You have to be responsible for your firearms. I do believe that in this country, across the board, red or blue state, we are coming to common ground on firearms and being responsible in the way you have. I mean, if you want to have an assault firearm, for whatever reason, if you're going to go kill ducks with an M16, fine. But there has to be a way that they know that firearm is still in your hands. If you have an assault rifle, there has to be checks and balances everywhere. Nobody's trying to take away anybody's right.
I understand that now. He brought up assault rifles and the AR-15s, and I can tell you that's going to get people going on Facebook and some of the callers that, there are those calling for those to be banned that citizens can't. I know I have friends who own these weapons and use them for target practice, enjoy them. They like having them. They're collectors, and, I see no harm in them having them, but then I see some of these types of guns being used in these shootings, and they're capable of doing so much more damage than a revolver.
In a short period of time.
In a short period of time. So how do you handle that type of issue? Where do you guys fall on that?
Well, I mean, the fact that you can buy an assault rifle out of the trunk of a car in Tennessee, let's start there. That is a serious issue before you ever get to the point whether or not assault rifles should be banned, which I don't think, I grew up in rural Tennessee, and if anybody showed up with an assault rifle to go hunting, I mean, we'd make fun of them. Now it's almost like, you have this extreme right, and you can fall on either side of the issue. I don't see any grounds to have an assault rifle. I don't see why anybody would want it. If you want to go to the gun range and shoot an assault rifle or any type of weapon, fine by me. That and you want to collect them, fine. But is there really a purpose for them? Is there a need for them? Are you going to hunt with them? No. Most often they're used to commit violent acts in a short period of time before our police can respond, and it puts our law enforcement officials at much greater risk of harm who are out there trying to protect us. But I also want to talk about, he said he was a veteran. So when he was in the service, he received a lot of training to use that assault rifle. Now you can win an assault rifle at a raffle for some of my colleagues' political fundraisers. And is that responsible? I would argue no. That's not responsible. He received a lot of training. But I also want to follow up on that, and something else we haven't talked about is the increased risk and rates of suicide, specifically veterans in the state of Tennessee. We are proud to have a lot of people who've served our country in the state of Tennessee because of Fort Campbell and other bases here, and people want to be in Tennessee. But we are seeing these increased rates of suicide among the entire population, not only youth for various reasons, but our veterans are taking their own lives. And we really need to focus on this issue and see what's leading to that.
But I mean, I'm not sure there's I mean, obviously if they die by suicide with a gun, there's an issue. But I mean, that's another issue. I mean, the veterans come back and they need the help that they deserve to get when they get back here, and they're not getting it. Aside from the gun issue, that's the big picture with these veterans come back with PTSD and everything else. Wouldn't you agree?
So that's another way. We have to look at the root cause of what's leading to these types of things. And is it mental health care? And I'm proud to have passed mental health parity laws in recent years, reached across the aisle and did that. And so there's a lot of ways. I raised that issue to again shine the light on the fact that there's a lot of ways we can address gun deaths in the state of Tennessee.
Okay, let's go to Mayford, I believe, on line 6. Hi, Mayford. Are you there, sir? Hi, Mayford. Go ahead, sir.
Okay, I've been hearing everything you said.
Okay.
And I disagree with most of it. A lot of it is home training, the love for your fellow man. Instead of trying to kill somebody, give love on them and treat them right.
Huh? Hey, I'm not. I wish everyone was like Mayford, and I wish everyone, and I know a lot of parents who, train their kids early on in gun safety and hunting and all that, and very responsible from an early age. And what he just said is great. The problem, Mayford, is not everyone's like him.
Yeah, I received gun safety training when I was in 7th grade in my public school, you know, and I had parents that taught me gun safety, but unfortunately that's not the case for everyone. We don't have that ability these days, and we don't have responsible gun ownership in a lot of cases, and we have a lot of accidental shootings.
Yeah, that's it. Let's go next to Ed. Ed, good morning. Hi, Ed. Hello, Ed.
Hey.
Hey, Ed, go ahead.
I've got one for you.
Okay.
I had a young man working for me had stole 2 weapons out of my house. He was a felon, wasn't even supposed to have them in his possession, and stole them and took them to a gun show by his own confession now, and sold both of them, plus 800 rounds of ammunition. Did he serve any time? No, sir. He didn't for violation of parole or for the theft of the guns. And I don't know. I think a judge or someone like that would let somebody go with no punishment. His only punishment was making restitution to me for the value of them. I won't get into any names or places, but I keep hearing all this gun law stuff. It's not worth a penny if nobody's going to enforce it.
Okay.
And we depend on our law people to enforce the judges especially.
Okay. And we even touched on that a bit about there maybe isn't the penalty that should be there if you leave a gun unsecured in a car that gets stolen, and the word gets out of that. Or what he just said, I don't know the circumstance. That's hard for me to imagine, a convicted felon stealing 2 guns and not facing anything other than restitution. But that judge, I don't know what he was thinking.
Well, I don't know what he was thinking either, but what also troubles me is that he took those guns to a gun show and then, as an unlicensed dealer, was able to sell them. I also am a gun owner, and I purchased my gun at a gun show from a stranger who was not a licensed dealer, who was just standing around the periphery of the gun show. I asked him if he had guns to sell. He said yes. We negotiated a price, and he gave me the gun. He had no idea who I was or what I intended to do with that gun, whether or not I was prohibited from having it.
And that was all legal.
And that was all legal. I mean, I actually consulted with a friend of mine who is a district attorney and with a police officer who was there about the transaction, and they both assured me that it was legal. So, you know, again, that's a little bit of a different angle of what he brought up, but I think that does raise a concern about the idea of people stealing guns and then going out and selling them.
All right, let's take a call next from Jim, I believe, on line 8. Hi, Jim. Go ahead, Jim.
Yes, I'm amused by these liberal Democrats and these ideas of imposing another law upon law-abiding citizens. And the problem, first of all, we've had drug laws for years and years and years, and drugs are pouring in this country. If you pass another gun law that outlaws AR-15s or any other type of gun, the cartels will just pour them in over the border. Now, these are the same Democrats that do not want to secure the border, but they pour in over the border, and all you can do is make the cartels a lot of money. On top of this, your congressman or state representative, he talks about the problem in these inner cities with the young people, which is exactly correct. But the problem he doesn't face is the irresponsible parents that do not help these kids get through school, and the breakdown of the family is producing all these young people that are totally irresponsible in overseeing their children in school, helping them get through school and get an education. They don't dare talk about that because they'll get those people mad at them.
Well, I mean, that part of it. Every time, by the way, Jim, I do a story on these youngsters getting busted for, you know, there was a story where they were caught with teddy bears stuffed with guns. That's where they were hiding them. And I asked the same question he's asking. What's with their parents? I mean, these are 14 and 15-year-olds getting weapons who think nothing nowadays of just popping you one if they're carjacking your vehicle. They'll just shoot you for kicks. And where are the parents? I mean, I guess that's, again, addressing the issue of not just the weapons, but the individuals and their background, right? I mean...
Well, the reality is a lot of these, if you go and look and you talk to Judge Calloway and you look at some of the individuals or these youths committing these crimes.
She's the juvenile court judge here in Davidson County.
Right. And so she's doing a lot of work with juvenile crime here in Nashville and restorative justice and things like that. And the reality is, and he agrees with me, the root causes of these that lead to youths committing these crimes. But, you know, they can't steal a gun in a car if the car is locked and the gun is responsibly locked in the glove compartment or hidden in some way. But also, you know, a lot of these parents, I'm a parent, I've got 3 small boys, and you know, that's one of the reasons this issue is so important to me, in ensuring their safety and making sure that when they have firearms, they're properly trained. But the reality is, a lot of the children across this state don't have 2 parents. Or their parents, or they live in a household with a single mother. And guess what? In the state of Tennessee, single mothers or women make about 72 cents on the dollar to a man. So their mother may have to work 2 jobs just to support that kid, which means she's not going to be home to supervise that child, which means that child is going to get into trouble. There are all kinds of factors that play a role in these children's lives, in addition to those adverse childhood experiences that I discussed earlier and the lack of educational opportunities. And so, yes, you want to blame parents, you want to talk about parents, do parents have responsibility? Absolutely. Responsibility comes with parenthood, but some parents are put in a position or experiencing challenges that some people don't want to acknowledge. They don't want to acknowledge that they're single parent households where a mother has to work 2 or 3 jobs just to survive and face her child, or that they can't afford to live in a safe community, you know, where this child is influenced by peers who've dropped out of school and are in other types of crime, and we're not providing after-school programming for these children to have a positive outlet, to be around positive role models. All these things. You want to point blame? Let's look in the mirror at elected officials like me. I have to look in the mirror every day, and we as a community, what are we doing to help these children in the community? What is he doing to help children in the community who don't have 2 parents?
Our next caller, actually, Reverend Enoch Fuzz is on with us, and he may even have thoughts on that. But Reverend Fuzz, good morning.
Hey, Nick, listen, man, I was kind of touched there. Where are the parents? You know, do these numbers. That's what I was thinking to ask you. Do you know what 2 plus 2 is? That is 4. And in Davidson County, you're looking at gun violence deaths, let's say in Davidson County. How many have there been this year? This city has 700,000 people. And I see in the media and how you guys are talking this morning, it's like the community is burning down. Where are the parents? I'll tell you, I know a lot of parents where they are. They're awesome, man. And I know a lot of good stories in this community that are not getting told, that are, you know, overcoming those odds that Mr. Clemmons was just talking about. It's like those odds don't even exist for them. But they're not making the headlines. It's the boys with their pants hanging down. And, you know, where's the solution? I want to, you know, give a hats off to these mothers who I know and getting their kids up and taking them to school. And what about that parent who got to, by law, take her kid to school, but that school don't have math teachers, and after 12 years, her kid's not smart enough to pass an exam, but she sent him to school. Or that mom who said that she didn't know her child could read until he was in the 7th grade. She found out that he was reading on a 2nd grade level, and somebody said, what's wrong with her? Well, the school, his report card said A's, Nick.
No, I know. So they're just passing him along.
Man.
Thank you for your call. Yeah, Reverend, and he's right. There are a lot of parents doing good. Of course, in the news business, we're reporting the bad too often of the time, but if someone gets shot, that's a news story.
Well, I would just also like to point out one of the things that we were talking about earlier is the importance of supporting community groups that are working in these communities to fill in those gaps. There are situations, as the previous caller mentioned, you know, where maybe the parents aren't present. There are lots of situations like the ones that the Reverend brought up and that Representative Clemmons brought up, where you do have parents, or at least a mother, often parents that are doing everything they can, and their kids are still falling through the cracks. And what's amazing about these community groups is they are helping to fill in those gaps. They are helping to provide that type of programming to young people at the middle school and high school level, teaching them conflict resolution, helping them study and stay in school, working with kids who are at risk, providing after-school programming for those children. And you know, those are things that we can control.
Listen, we have to take a quick break. When we come back, we'll come back and we'll wrap things up with our final segment with our guests right after this. Stay with us.